Hello, Margarita here. Welcome to the Rise Up with Margarita show, my Monday weekly 2 p.m. Eastern show where I really help those leaders of the new earth rise up and take their stand in the world, be visible, be heard, make an impact, lead the light, activate the light on the planet. And so, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. And every week I do a different topic that is related to really helping you elevate and really helping you rise up and really take the charge, lead the charge of the light on the planet. So welcome, seeing some folks pop in. Hello, hello. Good to see you. So today's topic is the 7 mistakes lightworkers make on social media. So I wanted to talk about this topic. And first of all, for those of you who are popping in, if we haven't met yet, my name is Margarita, and I help the New Earth leaders activate light and empowerment for the planet and build epic businesses through power activation and mentorship. So welcome, welcome. And the reason why I was really inspired to talk about this topic today, if you've been following my work for a while, I talk about visibility a lot for light workers. And when I speak about light workers, I don't mean people who just mean well or who want to do good things in the world, right? That's not a light worker. A light worker, just to be super clear, because I'm seeing a lot of confusion on some of this, a light worker is someone who has a high light quotient, who has a huge purpose in this world, right? To really step up and shine. They actually work with the light frequencies. They work with energy fields. They work with light. They transform light. They create more light, right? And they anchor in the light, and they do a lot of work with light, hence the term light workers, right? So as you can tell, this does not just mean that you are a good person or you mean well in the world, which is what I'm seeing a lot of people have a confusion around, because they're like, oh, well, I'm a light worker. I want to help people in the world, right? Or I'm a nice person, right? And it's like, no, it takes a little more than just being a nice person to be a light worker, right? So, and also light workers, especially when you are connected with your power, you are super connected with your purpose. You are stepping up and forward in your purpose. And so this is also why I do this show, because I really want to help you rise up and lead the light, right? Because those are what leaders do. They lead the light. They don't just hang out and, just blend in with the atmosphere and call it a day, right? Like, leaders of the new earth are actually leading the charge. They're leading the charge for humanity, which means doing a lot of scary things, which means you're not hiding, which means you're not playing it safe, which means you're doing a lot of super scary things that are aligned with your mission on this planet, right? And so hence today's topic, the 7 mistakes light workers make on social media. And to be even more focused on why I was inspired to create this post is because I do see a lot of light workers, show up or not show up on social media, and, no judgment, but it's just a really interesting observation, right? Where I will make posts on social media, and sometimes I see light workers being like, oh yeah, I'm in my power as a light worker and I'm really visible and all this stuff. And then I'm like, awesome, great. And then I'll check out their account and it's like, it's not even public, it's private. It's like a private account. You can't even see what they're posting, right? And sometimes they don't even have like a bio, like they have like a letter of the alphabet. And that's basically what happened in one of my posts, where someone was like, oh yeah, this is a great reminder because, I remember when I used to have issues with visibility, right? And I'm like, wow, she must be up to some really big work. I'm really curious to see what she's about. And then I actually did see that her account was set to private, and she had like an alphabet, like a single alphabet in her bio. That was her bio. And I'm like, So there's like a disconnect going on, right? Because that is not a light worker who is visible, because you don't, first of all, know, is that person a light worker? What are they doing in the world, right? And can I look at any of their posts, So I wanted to share these 7 mistakes with you so that you can see where you stand on things, and also where you get to improve. Because we always, when you are really committed to your purpose in the world, you're always really looking to expand, you're always excited to expand, really. I mean, I'm really that's where I'm at every day, right? Like, I mean, and sometimes people are like, oh, that's a lot of positive thinking. It's like, hell no, that ain't positive thinking. It's called lifestyle choice. It's like, it's about creating your life aligned with what you want and what you want to create. So here's why social media matters for light workers. So I'm going to share with you why it matters for light workers. I'm then going to go into the 7 mistakes light workers make on social media, and then adjustments you can make so that you can feel confident while sharing your message and better find and help your ideal clients, right? Because and I just assume if you're a light worker that you want to help people and that you want to offer your services, because that's what light workers who want to make an impact do. Like, if you're just posting just so you can get likes and pats on the back and stroke your ego, as you probably have heard me share in posts, that's not the purpose of social media. That's, I mean, if that's your purpose, then you gotta, if you're really here to make impact in the world, you get to make some adjustments, because that ain't what social media is about, unless you're, unless you just, have some issues with, wanting to be liked and accepted and all this stuff, then maybe, yeah, maybe that's a priority for you. But if you're really a light worker in service, that's not your priority, right? Your priority is to make impact. I'm seeing someone here on Facebook sharing, I still have a lot of myself truth to share, but as of now, I've shared way more than I ever thought. And I'm so proud, because that means I'm not stopping. Awesome. That's great. That's awesome. Woohoo! I love hearing stuff like that. Okay, so here's why social media matters for light workers. So if you want to help people beyond your local community, right? And I'm assuming you do, because impact, yes, you can have impact on your local community, but if that's where you want to stop, then that is not a movement. I mean, maybe, sure, you can have a local movement, right? But if you really want to lead the charge of light on the planet, that usually means going beyond, your 5-mile radius, right? And so that's something that's super important. And that is something that social media can provide for you, right? Because a lot of light workers will be like, oh God, social media, right? And it's like, it's what you make it, right? Like, I mean, if you're gonna have that approach, you will certainly make that type of work, but if you have a certain mindset where you're in that elevation and service, then you're gonna make massive impact. That's where the beauty lies. So when you allow yourself to open up and use social media and you're a light worker, you will actually meet more people. You just will. You will meet more people. You'll impact more people. I mean, sure, I have some folks locally in New York City who are patients. Obviously, if they're in my private practice, they're patients of mine who are in person, right? Because they're in my private practice, my brick and mortar. But I have clients not only in New York City, but also I've served people in England, in Botswana. I have clients who live in Brazil, Hawaii, Arizona, and Canada, like, I mean, that's just for starters. And so you can just really serve anyone, anywhere, as long as you've got some kind of internet connection and you are connected with your purpose, right? And then you can just continue to show up and help. And so that's why it's super important, because, when you want to make a greater impact, you will need to be visible on a global level. And that's something you get to open up into, because if you're here to change the world, then that means you address the world. You don't address the 5-mile circumference around your home, right? Like, you get to go beyond that and make impact. And also, it's free for now, like, I mean, it's free. It's a free tool that people widely use. And so, this is so super important. A very interesting comment saying, you are the first healer on social media who is not selling spirituality, rather you are healing. Well, thank you, right? And also, selling is service, right? Because a lot of light workers, and I'm just going to share that here, is that a lot of light workers, you also, part of the whole thing of being on social media is, yes, to be of service, to help people. That is what you lead with. And you also get to be abundant, right? And so that's something that I help my clients really step into, because it's not, abundance over here, impact and integrity over here, because that's when you're just starting out, or you're not really, you haven't been doing this for a while, you think that way, right? You think it's like either or. I have to choose between being in my integrity and being in my abundance, right? And you don't need to choose. That's what being in your power is all about. It's like you get to be in your power on all levels of your life, right? So yeah, and the focus is not necessarily just healing, it's service, right? Because service can look like so many ways. It can look like healing. It can look like speaking into something that's not popular. It can look like so many things. Hey, Ashma, good to see you. And someone's saying hi from Canada. See, love from Texas. Awesome. See, this is what I'm talking about. When you are letting yourself do the brave things, right? I mean, because I did not pop out of my mom's womb saying, oh my God, let's go on social media and let's do videos. I think that was the last thing on my wanting to do list. It honestly was. I mean, I've shared my story many times about, getting on social media for the first time. I think it was maybe 5 years ago now. And I would have rather poked a hot fork in my eye, because it was just that appealing to me to be to be visible and on social media. Hi there, Jennifer from Germany. See, this is what I'm talking about. You get to reach more people, help more people. So those are only some of the reasons why it's super important for light workers to embrace social media. And I mean, those are the more prominent ones, and some will probably pop up as we go along. But here are the 7 mistakes light workers make on social media. Number 1, they say they want to help people on social media, but they make their profiles private. How are you going to be visible if no one can see your stuff? Right? I mean, it's like that story I told you earlier. Someone was saying, "Oh my God, in my visibility, it's so great to have these reminders, because I used to have an issue with visibility." And then I looked at her account, and it was like private. It's like, well, how are you being visible if no one can read your stuff, right? So, I mean, unless they like request, what's the word? Request, to be accepted as a follower or something, right? And so that's number 1. One of the biggest things that I see a lot of light workers do. And Ashma, she's super visible. Her profile is public, and it's so beautiful, right? It's so beautiful to see light workers who allow themselves to be found. You need to be found, folks. You can't be on social media and not be social. Where is 2 and 2 coming together in that ratio? I don't know what that's about, right? Hi from Italy. Hello there. Good to see you. So number 2, they don't include their name in their account name or their bio. And that's super important, because, and a lot of these things that I'm going to share with you are more maybe technical. They're like things that you can apply like right now, right? And the reason why is because all of this, and I'm going to share this intersperse, is that this is all about the energy. This is all about the energy that you're putting out. And if the energy you're putting out is making yourself private, not letting people even read who you are, like they don't even know what your name is, I mean, you get to think about these things, because if you really want to move forward in the energy of service, you get to be found. You get to allow yourself to be seen in your bio, in your profile, and what you're sharing, So that's why all of this is really around the energy of service and the energy of the willingness to show up and be visible, right? So that is number 2. They don't include their name in their account name or their bio, such as like their handle, that handle on Instagram, for instance, which is at the top of your account, or what's called the headline, which is that one line in Instagram that is bold. And that bold headline is actually searchable. And I think probably within the past 1 to 2 weeks, you can now actually add more letters in there. And why, to me, that's a big deal is because I have a long ass name. And for the longest time, I could only put my first name in that headline because that's all that would fit. All right. But now, once I heard that there was some kind of update that was on the down low where you can actually add more to your headlines, it's important to have like your whole name if you can do it, right? So I have my whole long ass name on the headline, right? So make use of all the what do they call it? Like the real estate, right, of your bio, and understand that you want to have your name somewhere. All right, if it's not going to be in your account name, have it be in your headline at least, and so that's number two. That the mistake they make is they don't include their name in their account or their bio anywhere, especially in their headline. Number three, you don't know what they look like because their faces aren't in their avatar or their feed. Meaning like they might have a photo, like a main photo, but it's not even their face. It's like their cup of coffee or something. And or they're showing their face, but they got sunglasses on that cover like half their face, right? And it's like, okay, so how are people supposed to connect to you if they don't even know what you freaking look like? Right? Ashma, yeah, she's got that whole thing set up, right? Like she shows her face in her feed. So that's the thing here is that how do you expect people to connect with you if all you have in your feed are quotes, right? I love the quotes, but have some things where people can see your face, right? That's like one of the primary ways that you can be invisible as a light worker on social media. It's just to not show your face anywhere in your feed, right? Or they have like a picture of their dinner, or they have a picture of their dog, right? It's like it's like, what's going on here, right? What does this person look like? So that is number three. You don't know what they look like because their faces aren't in their avatar or their feed. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of how you can rectify that. Number four, they make their bio and their content about themselves. And so that's kind of what I was kind of segueing into, right? The pictures of the dog, the pictures of your dinner, like that said, if you're really crafty, you can actually tweak that and make it relevant to your ideal client if you're really good at this stuff, right? But if you are just sharing that kind of stuff just to share, people will be like, okay, but what does she do? Right? So I mean, unless you're like a dog groomer or something like that, like, or something, or you educate around animals or something like that, then that might be relevant to you, right? But normally for most light workers, that's not part of it. And of course you want to share a little bit about yourself, but you also want it to be relevant. And so one of the things, the biggest mistakes I see a lot of light workers do and make on social media is that they make all of their content about me. Look how amazing I am. Look at how prolific I am. I speak with the gods. I channel, Egypt. I channel Isis, and all this stuff. It's like, awesome. But your ideal customer, client, person you're here to serve, right? They're like, okay, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for me, right? Like, okay, so you're stroking yourself and talking about how amazing you are, but what are you doing for others, right? And that's what your ideal client wants to know. Like, they're having an issue, they're having a problem, and they want it solved, but they don't know if you're the one to solve it because all you're doing is talking about how prolific you are, right? And I get it. I've got a bunch of stuff going on too. I'm a conduit between the Star Nations and Mother Gaia. I activate divine power codes on the planet and in other people, right? It's pretty significant work. But I don't talk about it in that way, unless I'm illustrating something of how I can serve people and how I help you. Right? So that's why that's actually a big thing that a lot of light workers do. They're like, I'm a light worker. I'm a starseed. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm a mom of three. All this stuff, and it's like, awesome. but how are you helping people, right? So that's what I mean about making it all about you. Or then in your feed, it's all about, look at how gorgeous I am, look at my amazing car, look at my house, or, whatever. It's like, look at me content, right? But when you turn it around and you are truly in service, then it's like, here's why I'm here to help you. How can I help you? Let me help you break, this myth that is keeping you blocked from your power and your light, right? Like it's a different focus. So that is number 4, making your content all about yourself, and your bio all about yourself, right? Number 5 is that they're too internal. This is another huge one for light workers. They're too internal with their energy when it comes to videos. So, I've had a lot of practice. And so that's why, I've been doing this, I've been doing all kinds of speaking things. Before I became a healer, I was doing other things. I was in the music business. I was interfacing with a lot of bands. I was, doing performance art, in my local community, and doing spoken word. And I even I don't want to say forced myself, but I kind of forced myself to do some keynote speeches because I was asked to go on bigger stages. And this was maybe 20, 30 years ago or something like that, right? And I just would do it because the way I am is that the things that I'm scared shitless about, I do immediately, almost immediately, because I know that it's going to break me through. And that's just who I am, right? And that is also a practice. And when you get used to that, I mean, it's a whole different animal kind of once you get on social media, because it's kind of like, look at my pores, look at, my hair follicles. I mean, that's what it feels like, right? When you're on a stage, no one can see you up close and it's not as intimate sometimes, right? But on social media, it can feel super intimate. And that can bring up a lot of things for light workers who don't have certain things healed, right? Especially if you've got issues around worth, if you've got issues around, your your health, or how you appear, or how you equate your worth to being liked. I mean, if all those things are still issues for you, those are things that you get to heal and clear, because that's super important, right? So when I'm talking about being too internal, and I know I don't appear internal with my energy, right? But when I'm activating people's power codes, I am in the zone, right? Like I am on another realm. And you get to, when you're really connected with your power, you know how to tap in and, tap in with that internal frequency and, doing that higher work. And then you are also earthed, right? Like you're not staying out in the cosmos, because if all you do is stay out in the cosmos and you're out in the ether all the time, you're not grounded. And when you're not grounded, you're not on the earthly plane, and you're not really assisting as well as you could on the earthly plane, because you're still out there, right? And when you're really in your power as a light worker, you're actually grounded in your power. You're grounded and anchored into Gaia. And again, this is something that I help my clients achieve, right? So when I say you're too internal, it's like, I will see this sometimes, and this is normal if you're just beginning with video, making videos, by the way, is that you'll be really quiet, like you're having a conversation with yourself, right? Or like you're having a conversation with a friend. Like it's super intimate, but it's not intimate, right? And when you are showing up on video, you actually get to pump it up a notch. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But the point being is that when you're too internal, it's like you can feel the energy, right? The energy is just kind of like reclused back into me, and I'm like talking about myself, talking with myself, maybe talking with my best friend, or it's like, what is she talking about? Like we're over here, right? So that's what I mean is by being too internal. Like you're just like kind of in this shell, and you're not like trying to connect. So, and it's a whole different energy. And again, it's all about energy. And it's something that, yes, it gets better with practice, but you actually need to show up and do that in the first place, right? So number 6, their feed is random. So what I mean by that is that, like it's just, oh, maybe today I'll talk, like, let's say, for the purposes of my work, for instance, if my thing is all about, being in your power and you're being activated in your divine power and true power. And then all of a sudden I started talking about hot dogs, right? and I just started going off about hot dogs. And then another post was about mirrors. It's just like all this disjointed, unrelated stuff, right? And what happens when your feed is random and your bio is random and people are going to be like, what does she do? What does she do? What does she stand for? Like, what is her account about? Right? And so when your feed is random and you're not connected with your purpose, it's going to look random. So number 7, the 7th mistake I see light workers make on social media is that they don't use good lighting. And that's just kind of like, one of those things. I'll talk about, I'm going to talk about the adjustments you can make in a little bit, but I see this a lot, especially with light workers who are just starting out, is that they'll, have something really amazing to say, but then you can't even see their face, and it's like, sometimes they'll be in the shadow and then they'll start, and sometimes you can actually make that work. Sometimes it can be very nuanced, maybe, if that's your vibe, but like you still have to have good lighting so people can tell that it's you there, right? I mean, that's super, super important. So those are the 7 mistakes light workers make on social media. And now I'm going to talk about some adjustments you can make so that you can feel more confident about showing up on social media and really answer these 7 mistakes, right? Ashma is sharing, I definitely struggle with balancing my art and healing work. Yeah, I hear you. And you're not alone on that. A lot of light workers, are just really balancing, like making sure everything is getting the same attention and making sure you're grounded in it, right? Embodied Ritual is sharing, even after 20 years of dance performance, for some reason I still freeze or don't allow myself to be comfortably expressed. So interesting. Social media platform is like a whole different stage. And yeah, it's the whole thing too of, you'd think that it's not as intimate because it's going out like, to a bunch of folks, right? Like all over the world. But it's actually a little bit more intimate than if you're performing on stage. And being someone who's performed on stage, there can be moments when things can be super intimate, especially when you have maybe a smaller audience when you're performing on stage. But when you are on social media, like here on video, right? I mean, you are seeing me. You're like looking up close and personal, right? It's like meeting someone and you're like, they're right there. And that's why it's so vulnerable, right? Because people can see you. And that's why it's a little different and probably a little weird for those who are like, well, I mean, I actually do things on stage. And then here I am with social media and I just want to hide, right? And the reason for that is because there's a level of vulnerability and, around being visible. So here are some of the adjustments you can make. So number 1, switch your profile from private to public. And I highly recommend that you do that like today. Because if you are really, truly serious about being committed in service and making a difference in the world, you get to be seen. And that means you get to allow your account to be seen. And so that's really super important because, if you make it hard for people to connect with you, they will more easily swipe than connect with you, right? But if you make it easy for them to connect, like make your profile public, then it's like people don't have to like go and request to follow you or, all these steps, right? The more steps you give people to connect with you on all levels, and I'm just sharing this as an entrepreneur who's a spiritually conscious entrepreneur, the more steps you make people take in order to connect with you, the less engagement you're going to have, because it's really important to allow that connection, okay? Number 2, have at least your first name in your account handle or in the first line of your bio so that people connect with you being searchable, right? So That will help you be more searchable. If you can include your whole name, that's a little bit more awesome. And also in that first headline, by the way, you want to make sure that you have some kind of searchable thing. Like, of course, you want to have your name, right? But then also have something of how you help folks. So that's super important too, because it's searchable. Your headline is searchable, like I said. And number 3, have a clear photo in your avatar, meaning that in your main photo, that it's not you with sunglasses on or a picture of your dog or a picture of the beach or you on the beach as like a little pinprick of an image, right? I'm talking about your face and people being able to clearly see your face. And no sunglasses. They can see your eyes. Because, I mean, if you expect people to connect with you and you've got sunglasses on, it's like, I don't know where the logic happens in that, because the reality is that people don't connect with sunglasses. They connect with eyes, right? They connect with your eyes. You know, they have that saying of like eyes being the seat of the soul kind of thing. And in Chinese medicine, for instance, the shen can be seen in the complexion. The soul can be seen in the eyes. You know, it's just super, super important to let people see you. And if you're wearing sunglasses, you are preventing that, right? So make sure you've got a clear photo in your avatar where you are showing your face and your eyes are not covered so that people can connect with who you are, right? So that'll just help tremendously. Number 3, that was number 3. So number 4, make your bio and your content about how you help people and make it about them, not about you and how prolific you are and how amazing you are. No one needs to know about your trip to Costa Rica and how prolific that made you, right? No one cares. What they care about is, can this person solve my problem? Does she have the solution I'm looking for? I'm in pain, and can she help me? Right? That's what people care about. So if you keep talking about how prolific you are and how amazing you are, and like, I channel this and I do that and I experience this and I do that, switch that around to, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself, you can also connect that with how you help people by saying, and I'm sharing this with you because ... right? Like, I mean, you can connect it, but if you only make it about yourself, then that's just an ego stroke, right? That's not about how you help people or, that kind of thing, right? You get to turn it around and make it about them, make it about what they're struggling with, what their issues are, right? Connect with them so that they can learn to trust you. And not only will they be able to trust you if they feel like you know what you're talking about, first of all, but also that you can solve their problem. And if they can see your face. If they don't see your face, on the subconscious level, like for instance, if you're wearing sunglasses all the time, or you're wearing it in your avatar, for instance, like subconsciously, that looks like you're trying to hide something, right? And maybe on a logical level, you're not thinking that, right? But if you see that, I mean, if I were to see someone like that and they're talking about they want to help me, it's like, well, I don't know if I can trust that person, right? Like, that's what subconsciously is happening. You're thinking, oh, well, I kind of don't trust that person and I'm not sure why. And the reason why is because they're concealing a part of themselves, right? And that's also why it's super important to be visible and to start really getting comfortable being in service, because when you're just talking about yourself day in, day out, that's not being in service. That's you being in your ego, right? But if you switch this around and make it with, how can I help you? Where can I serve you right now? Do I understand what your problems are? Am I speaking into them? Am I letting you know I can solve them and that I can help you? And then are you making your offers about the services that you have so that you can help people with that problem, right? That's what people care about, So that's super important to know. And I'm reading a comment here saying, my growth edge is focusing my time and energy to actually create the content. and how to allow the flow of content to move through me. Yeah, well, it's also a discipline, right? One fallacy that I know some light workers believe, it's not included in what I shared earlier, but they kind of are like, well, I'll wait until the inspiration strikes. If you wait until the inspiration strikes, you're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. And in the meantime, no one knows who you are. You're not posting, right? Because here's the thing. I used to write a blog post more often. Like I still have a blog on my website, but that's what I kind of first started out with, right? And I just religiously posted a new blog post every 2 weeks without fail. And that's not to say there weren't interruptions, or that, there were things happening in my personal life or in my world at that time, right? Things were still happening and I still made those posts. And the reason why is because when you set aside a time to create this stuff, it then becomes a practice. And the only way you will develop confidence is if you do. And that's where confidence comes from. Confidence comes from experience. Experience comes from doing. And if you just want to kind of hang out and wait until you get this prolific vision in order to post, then you ain't going to grow on social media, because it's about allowing yourself to step into a consistency. And I'm not talking about you, right? I'm just talking about, the whole time and energy to create the content, right? And what that really means is that, because you get to carve out that time. You get to carve out that time so that, if it's a priority to you, right? Because whenever we say we don't have time for this, we don't have money for that, right? We don't have energy for that. It's not that we don't have energy or time or money. It's that we're putting it in another place of a different priority. So is this a priority to you or not, would be my question, right? Because if it really is, then you know where to put your time and your money and your energy for maximum growth. So where did I leave off? So that was number 4, making your bio and your content about how you help people and make it about them. Number 5, project your energy. And so this is where I'm going to share with you a little bit about, you get to take it up a notch, right? If you are doing a lot of light work, then you probably are just super internal and you just are kind of like in your zone, and you're all in your own world and you're just kind of disconnected from everyone else, right? And so when you are doing video, right, like you don't just use your conversational tone, which is kind of like this, right? And it's just, maybe it sounds like that, or maybe your voice is like this, right? But however it is, your energy gets to translate on video, and that happens when you approach it from the energy of service, from the energy to be willing to desire to connect with people, right? And so, I mean, you can probably feel my energy right now, right? Just by even me sharing. And I'm just talking about like a topic that I talk about a new topic every week, and now this is a different topic, right? So instead of being like super internal and like you're all in your zone, right? Like be in connection mode. Be in the desire and the willingness for service. And then you can feel the energy move outwards rather than just like, oh, just staying in here, right? Like you project yourself, you project your energy outwards. And also your voice gets to be a little bit more, taken up a notch, right? That said, like me and my partner Stacy, we do tend to have like bigger voices anyway. But also there are times and moments when it's great to have like some softness and that kind of thing, right? But that's what happens when you've already been practicing and you already have an understanding of how big your voice gets, or how small and soft and for impact you get to make your voice, right? And it's all different and it all shifts and it's all energy and it's all about the intent, right? So project your energy. It begins with the willingness to connect, the desire to connect with people, the desire to be of service and to help people, right? And that energy will come from your heart and will project out from you. And then when you're doing something on video, instead of just like talking like this, right, and just, being quiet, it's like allow yourself with that intention of service to be heard, right? And allow yourself to take up space with your voice instead of just like, oh, well, I kind of don't want to talk about stuff and don't even look at me, right? Like that's a whole different energy, right? That's a whole different energy. You get to embrace that you get to connect with people, right? Like, I mean, when I'm on social media, like even before I, do a bunch of reels, like shoot a bunch of reels, like my intention is, okay, who can I serve? Who needs to hear this? What is the message? What do I get to serve up with? What is the energy? What is the frequency, right? And then I show up, right? And, and sometimes, and for me now, it's just like a tap in, bam, done, right? And then I show up, but for a while it took me like, I had to practice. You got to practice that. And that happens with consistency and just doing it, even when you're not inspired, even when you had a shitty day, right? So that's all about number 5, projecting your energy and your voice, not throwing out your voice. Okay, that's a whole different other thing entirely, right? But know the capacity of your voice and be in the authenticness of your expression. And that happens with practice. And then with the practice comes experience. And with the experience comes confidence. And then you can play with your voice and move it around and bring it back in, And it just really depends. So number 6, be consistent with your topic and what you are sharing. So this goes back to the whole thing about posting about your dog or posting about your dinner. And then another post you're talking about my prolific business, right? Or, here's my light work that I do, right? If you are inconsistent with your content and people are looking at that, right? And they're confused, excuse me, a person who's confused is going to swipe. They're not even going to try to like figure out like, oh my God, like me, I'm just like, I just like connect in. If I can't connect in because their energy field is all confused and in disarray and stuff, like I just swipe because I'm not interested in that, right? Like because the way I am is that I consume social media consciously, meaning that like I go in with what I want to experience, right? And if what I'm seeing is not congruent or aligned with that, then I'm not interested, right? And even if it's not that conscious for some people, there is something about that, right? That they will swipe if they get confused with what you're posting about. And if you just post about random shit all day, or another day it's this, another day it's that, maybe you'll do this next time, maybe you'll do that, right? First of all, if you're trying to be seen as the authority that you really are, you get to be cohesive and consistent with what you are talking about, right? And also, that's also something that I can tell when I look at someone's account, and if they're just talking about all kinds of random things and there's like nothing tying it together, I'm just like, wow, they kind of don't know what they're doing, right? Like they're not really connected to who they are. Number one, they're not connected with their purpose. They're not connected with how they get to serve, and that doesn't come from a place of judgment. It's just I love to learn about people, right? I love to look at what people are doing and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. That's an interesting choice, right? And I just start like, it's something that it's part of like my starseed awareness is that, humans fascinate me, right? And me being an embodied human, it's like fascinating, right? That's why I got into, Chinese medicine and acupuncture, because it's like all of that is super fascinating. So I love learning about behaviors and all that kind of stuff. And that said, speaking of behaviors, right, is that if you are trying to serve people as a light worker, meaning that you have a spiritually conscious business with it, and you're providing services that will really help people transform their lives, and they look at your account and they're confused mind will never buy. And that's the reality. Okay. And, if that just made you cringe talking about buying or selling or anything like that, or anything with money, get used to it, right? If you're really a spiritually conscious entrepreneur, get okay with talking about money. get okay with talking about money and financial abundance. Not only, because light workers are like, I'm abundant in love, I'm abundant in joy. Awesome. Be abundant in everything, including money, right? Because unless you just want to be a broke ass light worker, right? And that's a choice, but I wouldn't recommend it. So be consistent with your topic and what you're sharing. And when you're consistent with your topic, meaning you are connected with your purpose. When you're connected with your purpose, then you know who you're serving. And when you're connected with who you're serving and you understand what they're moving through, what their struggles are, someone's sharing, I'm screaming. Well, I'm glad that it's resonating for you. Awesome. Good. See, this is what I'm talking about. When you are connected and tapped in, you will get comments like that. You will get comments like, oh my God, I needed to hear this today. Or a comment I get a lot is, how are you in my mind? How are you in my mind? And oh my God, this resonates. Or look, the universe, brought me to this post, right? This is the kind of energy that transpires when you show up, So, and this is the kind of thing that I actually help my private clients get into, really connecting in with who is their ideal client, how do they get to serve them, what is their messaging about. And so, if that's resonating for you, then let me know, because you get to be supported in that, and I can help you in being supported in that. So that's what I do with my private clients. So that said, be consistent with your topic and what you're sharing, because what it will do if you do that is it will, number one, position you as an authority on that topic. Because I remember, I'm going to share this quick story that when I first started, and I was like, I knew that I got to do that. I knew that's something I would get to do and need to do. But I'm just like, well, aren't people going to get sick of me talking about the same thing every day? Right? Here's the reality on that. People do not immediately absorb your content. Okay? Meaning that once you share something that's like amazing, that had like amazing, it was just filled with goodness, right? People will take that in, and some people will really take it in and learn. Others will usually take it in and be like, there's something about this person that really resonates with me, or there's something in that post that really spoke to me. And they're just kind of like chewing on it a little bit, right? And with each post that you share, that it's very much on topic, little by little, they start to get it. And it's not because they can't get it or there's something wrong with them, right? It's not that. It's just that the way human behavior is, we need many touch points in order to get things, in order for you to get that, oh, that's what that is, right? And I think there's like even like, I don't know, 7 touch points or something like that, for people to really get things, and for people to even learn sometimes. So some people will learn immediately, right? But more often than not, what you are creating is a body of work that will make impact. And that body of work will have a cohesive frequency, I'll call it, right? So when you're tapped in with your frequency, everything you put out is going to be of that frequency, and people will get it. They'll get it on the frequency level, but like, maybe their reality is not lined up for that yet, and that's fine. But then the more that you put out stuff, it's going to be like, oh yeah, she said that last time. Oh, I get it now, right? And that's how people are, right? So that is why, it's okay for you to post stuff in a repetitious way, because not everyone's going to get it the first time around. And on that matter, not everyone's going to see it the first time around, right? Just because you posted it doesn't mean every single person in your audience saw it, right? Sometimes it gets missed, I mean, that happens sometimes, right? But the point being is that it's really about consistency, being honed in with your message, your voice, your purpose, your heart, being connected with your heart. Like if you're not connected with your heart, this is going to be super difficult for you and with you, right? Because it's super, super important. And so that's why being consistent with your topic and what you're sharing, even when you're not inspired, is very important. Because even on those days, because I have some days where I'm not like, where I'm just like maybe a little more tired than usual or something like that, right? But I still put something out. And that's because I've already worked a system where I already have batched stuff. I already know what I want to say on some level, right? And then I just get to like type it up, right? And so, and also I don't need to wait to be inspired. I make myself inspired, right? And if you're waiting to be inspired, you're approaching it a whole way that is, that wouldn't be helpful for you, right? Because if you're only waiting to write or post when you're inspired, it won't happen. And because that's honestly just another excuse. It really is. Because you can make yourself inspired, right? And you can do so by just continuing to show up. I'm going to share with you a little story, just to give you some perspective, okay? My dad, he was a little bit of a poet. He was a Western physician, but he was also a poet. And so what he had me do when I was a child, he would have me take a word, each subsequent word in the encyclopedia, and create a poem out of it every day. That was something. And hell no, I did not feel like writing a poem every day, and I didn't feel like looking at like an encyclopedia every day. But what did I do? I did it, right? And that's another reason why I'm also really good with being on the fly, is because I was given shit to work with basically, and I made it, something that is helpful, or something, that I created with intention, right? It doesn't matter if you're not inspired. It matters if you are willing to put in the time, and you're willing to be of service, and you're willing to show up, and you're willing to help one person who needs to hear you right now. So that was number 6. Number 7, in terms of adjustments you get to make, is, number 7 from the mistakes was about not using good lighting. So the remedy to that, use good lighting. So one thing that you can totally use is natural light. Natural light is awesome, super flattering, and that's where you're basically facing the window when it's daylight out, and you're receiving kind of like that diffused look, right? Yeah, and that's super, super important to do. And, the natural lighting is great. I don't have a lot of access at this moment to natural lighting, which is why I have a big ass ring light that I use every single time you see me live or doing a reel or something, right? I'm always using a ring light, which is fine because it provides really awesome light and, whatever. So have a ring light. The one that I use is a Diva ring light. I got it on Amazon, right? So another thing is like you have like probably different types of ring lights. I have like a smaller ring light. I have this big one that I'm using right now. And just letting you know that I'm not going to be answering random questions, right? It's always going to be on topic. And so today's topic, as a reminder, is the 7 mistakes lightworkers make on social media. So that's what the answers I'm going to be providing today are going to be on. So going back to using the good lighting, right? Make sure you're using good lighting so that people can see your face. Natural light, natural sunlight, or use a ring light, or I also, like I was about to share, I have a more travel-sized version, but that's also good too for like other locations, in my home. So that's important to do. So speaking of all this, the lightworker mistakes that lightworkers make on social media, and then also the adjustments you can make in order to be more seen and heard in a more viable way so that you can really help your people. Does anyone have any questions on what I just shared around being visible as a light worker, showing up on social media? I'm going to grab some water. And as you're typing up any questions you've got, make sure they are connected to the topic of discussion today, around being visible on social media as a light worker. Around, it could be around anything that I just shared, around what the mistakes are, the adjustments you can make so that you can really break through those barriers, right? And really show up in social media and really help more people. And in the meantime, if this is something that really resonates with you and you're connected with your purpose, and when I say your purpose, I don't mean you as a healer or, the fact that you want to help people. All of us are here to help people, right? We're all healers, right? What I'm talking about when I'm talking about your purpose is your specific transformation that you are here to provide in the world. That's what your purpose is, right? And so that's not something that I do, for folks. That's something that you get to connect with your higher self, through your higher self. This is something that, emerges within you when you connect with your higher self. So I help those leaders of the new earth who are truly being in the leadership, doing the scary things, being proactive on their path. They're connected with their purpose, connected with their heart, and they are ready to be, make their epic spiritually conscious business, right? If that's you and you are ready for what's next with power activation work, meaning that it activates your divine power on the DNA level. And, so that's why it's super important for people to be really super connected. So that means I don't work with people who are really in deep trauma. I don't work with people who have a lot of unhealed stuff, because this work that I do is super deep and transformational, and you do need to have a certain level of having done that inner work and that deeper work on yourself, and you're no longer in a place of unhealed trauma and triggered trauma, right? So if that's you and you're ready to be supported into the next level of your power, being supported in mentorship, in the activation work that I do, and in the long term, then I invite you to DM me what your powerful Lightworker purpose is, and then we can talk about where I can support you. Okay, so I see some questions in here. Good question. What are your thoughts on the logo as an avatar? So I hear some split things on this. Me personally, logos tend to be hard to read because, like when you're looking at it on your desktop or whatever you created it on, right? It's like, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. But then it's shrunk. You shrink it into like this little thing. And like, if your logo can survive that minimalization, then go for it. But more honestly than not, more times than not, it's going to be hard to read. And so that's why I really prefer having a photo of yourself without sunglasses because people don't connect with logos. People connect with faces, and they connect with your eyes. So, and they connect with your energy. And unless your logo is just that prolific, they're not going to feel it from a logo. So I really recommend really having your face there. And for instance, I'm guessing that maybe your logo is your avatar right now, because just having a quick look, because I can't look at your actual account because then it would end this live. But from what I see, it looks like really pretty, but I don't know what it is, right? But if I had a photo of your face, I'd be like, oh, there she is. I'd be like, oh, it's her, right? So that's my recommendation really, is just, I would recommend, my 2 cents is that I really would recommend having a clear photo of yourself, and especially, where your face is kind of like, cropped like that versus like from far away and you're like this tiny little head. Sometimes I've seen people do that on like their vacation shots and they made it their avatar. So I wouldn't recommend that either, because I'm just like, what is that? What is that? Is that a person or is that like a speck of dust? I don't know. So I would recommend using your face, and especially if you can have some kind of uniform background so your face even pops. That is super eye-catching. Someone is asking, I wanted to ask if it's better to do live or stories where we talk. I would recommend both, honestly. It's really recommended to like have some kind of consistency with a live. I wouldn't recommend just doing them sporadically, like when you have like an epiphany or whatever. I really recommend having something consistent, because that will just bring more eyeballs, and it also helps your authority also, because like if you're doing a lot of reels, like I do tons of reels, as you probably found me through a reel, you know. So I do tons of reels, but you get to show all aspects of yourself, right? And the lives allow you to be seen in your expertise, you know, whatever that is. Then the stories, and the stories, for those who are curious what that means, because Instagram stories, and Facebook now has this too, Facebook stories, but it's that little thing, that bar at the top of your screen where you see circles of people's heads of all the accounts you see and follow, right? That is all their IG stories. And the IG stories, you can basically post something like a photo, or you can speak as a video in increments of 15 seconds up to 1 minute. So what is great about that is it's kind of a little bit more immediate. It's kind of like behind the scenes, or you have like a little nugget of wisdom, or you want to share something about your day or whatever. Instagram stories are a little bit more, they're a little bit more like a free-for-all. Like all the stuff, like the dog, the dinner, you can post that on your stories, right? I wouldn't recommend it in your feed unless you're just like super talented at like anchoring it, you know, connecting it all together. And then the stories actually disappear in 24 hours. And that's also a really great way to practice. Like if you're really camera shy, you can like shoot something in stories, and you can either delete it immediately so it's not even shown as a story, you know, at least not longer for like a minute, or you can just let it go and practice being okay with having that piece of you being visible on video live for 24 hours, and then it'll like leave. So I hope that helps. I would recommend doing both. Okay, so Drika's asking, do you make content on the spot as well? How do you make yourself inspired? So the making yourself inspired part, Drika, that comes from just like showing up even on those days where I'm not in the mood. Like, to be honest, like I started like first, before I was on social media more, I was doing that with blogs, and I just showed up, and like I think it was Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. That was my blog time. No one touches, you know, like no one calls me. My phone is off. You know, I am like dead to the world, and I'm just like writing that blog post. And so even if I'm just like, oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, or whatever, right? Maybe like something happened earlier that day and I'm not in the mood, I still show up. And then, you know, and it can be short. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece, right? And that's also the same with social media. You get the confidence, and you get the inspiration by just consistently showing up and getting into your groove, your own personal groove, right? Because now I already know, like, okay, you know, what I do for myself is like I batch my stuff if I can, like the reels I batch, in terms of creating them. And then I will set another day, maybe like, you know, usually what I end up doing is that right before I'm about to post, I like, you know, put up the text bubbles, and, you know, and then I draft a caption, and then I just hit publish, right? And as long as there's no tech issues with whatever is in the video itself, you can always revise the caption later, right? You know, because there will be moments where I'm like, oh, like I totally didn't explain this, or I didn't talk about something, right? And you can just add that later. So I do sometimes, yes, make some content on the spot, but I do have a big bunch of content pre-made. And I do that once a week. I batch my reels once a week. And then when it comes time to post, I've got stuff to work with, and I'm like, yes, this is what I want to talk about today. And it's also about connecting in with, you know, what is the frequency, what is the message, and then moving forward with that, right? And that comes from being super connected with your purpose and knowing who you're serving, and then thus knowing what your messaging is about, right? If you're not clear on any of those pieces, you're just basically randomly publishing stuff, right? But the inspiration comes from the doing, and then starting to like get like a feel for how you flow on how you do your stuff, right? So I hope that's helpful. What are your thoughts on photos and selfies? Is it self-indulgent? I feel torn at times that I don't wish to perpetuate a superficial approach to content. Then don't. If you're not a selfie person, don't take selfies. There's so many ways to take photos of yourself, right? And but what I'm hearing more there is not so much about the selfie thing, because I know what you're saying. There are some really super self-indulgent light workers, especially starseeds, who love to just be like, look at my ass, look at my face, look at how perfect I am, right? And it's just like, that's fine, if that's what they're about, right? But if that's not what you're about, then you get to make it how you're about, right? So if you're not like a selfie person because, it's like overindulgent or self-indulgent to you, then, first of all, you also get to see that taking photos of yourself is not self-indulgent. Um, and at the same time, there is a way to like be all like selfie all the time, right? Some of my colleagues, they like make fun because they already know that I'm going to be like creating some content. Like if I'm traveling somewhere with them, like for instance, when I was in Mexico, I took selfies like the cows came home, right? But that doesn't mean I was doing it from a look at me, look at how amazing I am, look at my amazing life, right? It comes more like, how can I inspire people? How can I use this to inspire my people, right? That's always where I'm coming from. But my colleagues are always like, oh, okay, she's going to put this on Instagram, right? Or she's going to make a reel, or they sometimes even say, oh, this would make an awesome reel, Margarita, and that's the thing, is that like there are ways where it's super self-indulgent, but it's also really with the energy. If you're doing it to be like, look at me, look how awesome I am, look how whatever I am, then that is more self-indulgent. And you don't need to perpetuate a superficial approach, right? And you get to also embrace the different levels. Because there you get to explore the deep, deep, deep parts of you. You get to explore something that's a little bit more lighthearted and fun. You get to be you in your own style. And if that means less selfies and more something else, or maybe you're teaching, or maybe you're, coaching somebody, or you're providing someone spiritual guidance, or maybe someone is, shooting footage of you, like reading cards, or doing a Reiki session on someone, there's so many ways. And you can also take some photos of yourself that aren't like selfie-ish, right? And then also consider the fact that there are selfies and photos of yourself that are not self-indulgent. Sometimes it's just like you want to capture the energy of that moment, and so that's okay too. So it's really about really getting comfortable with who you are and what you want to create and make. So I'm seeing a question: anything you can speak to on showing up while you are going through really tough times? Yes. Share from the healed wound and the scar, not from the open wound. And what I mean by that is, when you are like, let's say you're having a breakup with your boyfriend, or like whatever, right? Something really deep, and you're like, oh my God, right? Like, first of all, you can take a break. You can take a break from social media. You got so many choices, right? You got options. You can either take a break and deal with your shit, right? And if you're a hot ass mess in that moment, believe me, we've all been there, right? And you get to do whatever's right for you in that moment. And if that means that you take a break from social media for a few days, then do that, right? That said, if you feel the desire to share about that, then share from the scar, not the gaping open wound that's bleeding all over the place, right? Or that's not pussing all over the place, right? Make sure you are coming from the place that is healed, not from, I hate men and I hate these people because they hurt my feelings, right? Like, it's, as long as you're not going from that energy, right? Because what you are transmitting is a frequency. And it is possible for you to provide something highly valuable and of service to your ideal client, even if you're moving through something. And sometimes just even being honest about it is really in service, right? So for instance, it could be like, like one time, I think when I had a surgery or something, I would like talked about, sharing about I'm about to go into surgery, or, like it was so long ago now, but it was like I shared just from an honest place, right? Just from an honest place, not from a triggered, unhealed place of like, oh my God, like I'm losing my mind, right? But from a place of this is what I'm noticing, right? I'm noticing this moving through me today and right now, and then you turn it around and you help the person see why you're sharing it with them. And so one way you can segue that is, and here's why I'm sharing this with you, right? So you always want to make it something that the person can receive from, can learn from, can get an aha from, or maybe you just broke a myth for them, right? And you're helping them shift in consciousness. That's how you speak when you're going through something rough, if you choose to speak, because you can also choose not to. So question here, would you say a new account would be beneficial to try and compartmentalization personal account and service account? So what I think you're saying is, if you're new, would it be beneficial to have a personal account and a business account? You can totally do that. Some people do that. I don't, because I think it's a little bit more because I'm a little lazy that way. I don't want to like manage more than one account. So, and plus, like, I'm really showing up, you know, in for more of service anyway, versus, you know, here's my trip to Mexico, you know, like it's less about me personally and more about in service, and that's just my choice. But I know that some people also have a personal account in addition to a business account, and so that could be a choice if you want to do that, just as long as you're also differentiating that with your content. Okay, so thank you for sharing. As I get back in a groove with my work after spring break, this has helped me remember what's important and how I can help myself so I can support others. Yeah, and I love how you said how I can help myself so I can support others, because one of the biggest Lightworker mistakes is that they don't take care of themselves. They're like outpouring, let me help this person. I want to help this person. I want to help heal this person. First of all, you're not here to heal people. You're here to help facilitate their healing, right? Everyone is their own healer. And that's super, super important to understand, because that's one thing that, you know, like some people really love the romanticization of I'm a healer, right? And I guess technically I use that word as a healer or to refer to myself because it's just easier for more light workers to understand. But at the end of the day, you are a facilitator for healing. You are not healing other people, right? But that said, you work on yourself first so that you can really be of service. Okay, these are great questions, everyone. So when you mention spiritually conscious entrepreneur, are you referring to services, or can this be incorporated with products as well? For sure, etc. Like a candle business. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, basically, when you're a spiritually conscious entrepreneur, that really means that you are an entrepreneur, meaning that you are, you know, charging for services or charging for products you make or create or something like that, right? But you're providing something and receiving payment for that, right? And that is what an entrepreneur is, right? If there's no exchange of money, then you don't have a business, you have an expensive hobby. And you've heard me say that many times, right? Because a lot of light workers are like, oh, I don't need to charge for my services, or I just barter. And it's like, do not recommend. Do not recommend that. If you're doing it, stop that now. I mean, if you want to make impact, right? Like you can, if you're not interested in making impact, you can go ahead and do that. But if you want to have a sustainable practice, you will be a spiritually based entrepreneur on things, right? So meaning that you're providing your services or your products. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, candles for sure, right? Candles, essential oils, crystals, you know, wrapped crystals, you know, whatever, right? Whether they be products or services that are based on helping people with their consciousness and their spiritual ascension, right? That is what a spiritually conscious entrepreneur focuses on. That's a great question. You guys have got some great questions. Awesome. Someone's asking, when you say batch reels, do you make many on the same topic? Well, as you probably have noticed, I speak a lot about similar things. Excuse me, but there's always some kind of nuance, right? There's always a new nuance. It's not every day, be in your power, be in your power, be in your power. Like, I mean, it kind of is, but there's a nuance about what that looks like to be in your power. Like one day I might talk about visibility, another I might talk about commitment. I might talk about being a spiritually based entrepreneur. I might talk about your healing work, or self-love, or, it can take on many forms. So yes, I do batch reels. And I don't batch it based on topic. I batch it based on what the frequency is. And when you're really in service, it's really about what is it that my people need to hear today? That's what it's based on, right? So it's not just like some random whatever, right? And again, it's about connecting in with your purpose and your light and all that stuff. And I'm just realizing that we're way over time, because you guys have some great questions. And yeah, so I just realized that we went over time. So first of all, thank you so much for your amazing questions, right? And let's see, let me see how many more questions you've got going on. I love that you guys are super engaged with your own path. Super, super important. Okay, so I'm going to answer one more question because I do want to respect your time also, because we're already past the hour, and I love that you've engaged so deeply with your power and have stuck with me even beyond the hour, right? So I'm going to do one more question. Okay, where is it now? All right. So I see this question: is a blog a good companion piece to posts, i.e. having the blog to expand on a post? Absolutely. And I do this a lot, where I might actually make a live. You can, I love to repurpose. Like when you really start getting into all of this higher work and you're really showing up in commitment, you actually repurpose. And I repurpose my content all the time. So I can repurpose it with my mailing list, with my social media, I can make it alive into a blog post. It's just the more you can repurpose, the less you actually work on this stuff. And it's not because you are trying to be lazy about things. It's just that it's smart to repurpose your content, because not everyone is going to see it in the exact same way that you're putting it out. Meaning that maybe people on your email lists are not seeing it on your social media, and vice versa. And if you don't have an email list, that's one of the biggest things that you need to focus on. Again, this is one of those things that I help my private clients with, because it's super, super important, because social media is owned by someone else, but you own your email list. And so this is something that I help my private clients really get into, really connect in with their purposeful vision. First of all, they're connected with their purpose when they come to me, but then I help them go deeper into who they are helping, into their ideal clients and their messaging, and also how to batch reels, all these kinds of things, right? And also, how to show up in the world. It's super, super important. And so if that's something that you would like support on, and you are already connected with your purpose and your heart as a light worker, and you are excited to open up into making your business epic or even more epic, then I can help you with that. DM me what your powerful light worker purpose is, and we can talk about ways I can be in service to you or support you, and go from there. So in the meantime, thank you for being here. We covered today the 7 mistakes light workers make on social media. I will have this recorded in the video section in Instagram and Facebook. So make sure that you check it out there. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the week. Much love, light, and power to you.